Okay, now that you have learned all these new things about the Earth system and atmospheric circulation, we haven't done ocean circulation, so I have placed this along with the atmospheric circulation, but we'll do ocean circulation next. And then I will actually introduce the Coriolis effect, which is the effect of the rotation of the earth on how winds move, how ocean currents move, and how everything happens. So let's just scan through this very complicated infographic, as they call it, from the University of California at Berkeley. And I don't know whether I turned on or turned off. Okay, so wow, this is hard to read even for me as I'm sitting here. So on YouTube, unless you put it on a big screen, you may not be able to see it at all. So just see that it's going from outside on causes of global change with many little figures with little words. Human causes are the global change, and then it zooms into how the Earth system works with the global energy budget that we talked about, the atmosphere, the elemental cycle, which we implied. We said CO2 is released by the plants and is taken up by the plants, and you can imagine that it's also going into the ocean. It is being stored in the cycle, in the soils and plants and so on. These are called cycles, how the carbon is getting taken up and being released. When we consume food, we are essentially taking hydrocarbons, things that have carbon in them, and reduced form of carbon, sugar, carbohydrates, and we are producing CO2. So we are part of the carbon cycle as well, all the species. And so there is a biological part of the carbon cycle, and there is a physical part of the biological cycle, or chemical part that doesn't have anything to do with the biology, like just the CO2 being going from one place to another. Okay, so that's how the Earth's elemental cycle. Then you have a carbon cycle, you have similarly a nitrogen cycle. Imagine fertilizers are being put on croplands or agricultural lands, which are things like urea and ammonia, which are nitrogen based, and then you have phosphorus, which is needed for plants as well, and you also have iron and other things. So those are called elemental cycles. Then you have ecosystems, which is all the vegetation, life in the ocean, in lakes and everything. And then it begins to talk to this Earth system, which you can think of geosphere, which we talked about, and the hydrosphere, which is all the water. And it has, of course, the atmosphere and the biosphere. So within that, I'm kind of jumping around, but you can see in the inner circle you have measurable changes in the Earth system in terms of the biosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. When you say changes measurable in the geosphere, we're talking about cutting down mountains and building roads and tunnels and so on and so forth. And of course ecosystems, you can see changes in forest cover, vegetation cover, agricultural land. And hydrosphere, we are changing where evaporation is happening, where rain is falling and how much rain is falling and so on, how much snow is falling, how many glaciers are melting and so on and so forth. So there are many details inside. I didn't find a clean way to chop it into pieces to look at it, but you get the idea that we have already talked about human causes. For example, you have freshwater use. We are digging up groundwater using bore wells and so on, and collecting water from the lakes or rivers and so on to use for our drinking and cooking and bathing and industrial use and agriculture, irrigation and so on and so forth. We are causing lots of pollution in the air, in the water and so on. We are causing resource extraction. So we think about, you know, everything, the cloth you are wearing, the shirt you are wearing. It's not just cotton that is grown or polyester that is made, but it also has processing, transportation, machines. It has colored dyes that go into the water, and so on and so forth. So we are always extracting resources to make everything, to make this bottle of water or this cup of tea that I'm drinking, or even the tea that's inside my cup. They are all made by extracting things. Okay, and then of course we are also catching fish, and we are hunting still for animals, even though we have livestock and growing meat and so on and so forth. Obviously everything changes the global energy budget, it changes the winds, it changes the albedo, changes the greenhouse gases. We are using, you know, even with renewable energy and electric cars, which is advanced concept that, you know, you may not know, but don't worry. Even those require, you know, you may be wearing gold, you may be wearing silver, which is being mined, So we're extracting resources and creating changes in the Earth's surface and polluting water and air and so on and so forth. So at the center here, for good measure, they have put quality of human life and well-being. This is to remind us that we depend on Earth and all the resources it provides. Air quality and water quality. Quality means, air quality means how clean is it, how much dust there is, how many chemicals are there, does it give you asthma, does it make it harder for you to breathe, does it give you diseases, and so on. So health and diseases are related to these. Water quality means what kind of contaminants are there in the water. Is the food available? Is it healthy? Is it nutritious? And of course, development of human population. So population has grown, as we said, once we became agriculturalists about 10,000 years ago, and it has continued to grow because of the so-called green revolution, where we found ways to put fertilizers and grow a lot of rice in a given piece of land. 1 acre of land, it could produce just a little bit of rice before, but with green revolution and fertilizers and irrigation, we started to grow a lot more. So a lot of food is produced, but not everybody gets it, not all of it is nutritious, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is how the global change is interacting with how the Earth system works. And you can see that there are two-way arrows everywhere. There is feedback going this way and feedback coming this way. Feedback's happening here and here, everywhere, right? So we are changing weather, and there is something called extreme weather. What does that mean? If you are a kid, let's say you are in the 12th grade, have you seen that rain in, let's say, Mumbai is not as it used to be when you were a kid? Well, maybe you're too young to remember the changes, but you can talk to your grandma and grandpa and your parents and see if they can tell you how rainfall has changed. Let's say monsoon has to arrive in the first or second week of June in Mumbai. If it's a normal monsoon, sometimes it comes earlier, sometimes it comes later. So now your parents may tell you that it used to come earlier, now it's coming later and later. How is that related to all these human activities? They may say that it used to rain very nicely and, you know, no heavy rains every year, but now they may say every year now it's pouring and causing floods and trains to close down, roads to be closed, and you are stuck at home, your school is closed, and so on and so forth. Heat waves are coming. You didn't used to be so hot, now it is much warmer during March, April, May, and even monsoon is very hot, unlike before. All these things. So those are the changes you see, changes they see, and are they aware of what is causing those changes? If they say things are changing, you can ask them, so that you can tell them what's happening. You are learning all these things. You can explain to your mother or your father or your brother and sister that we are doing all these things, deforestation and fossil fuel burning and agricultural activities, and even the bus we are taking, the car your parents are driving, and so on and so forth, are causing emissions of greenhouse gases and changing the energy balance and causing global warming. Okay, so global warming is where the average temperature of the earth is increasing. When we say global change, it means it's changing everything. It's urbanization, it's changing the habitats, for tigers, for deer, for animals, for birds. You can ask your parents, how have the birds changed in Mumbai? Did they see more birds before? Are there fewer birds before? And you can see if there are more cockroaches and more mosquitoes, more diseases like dengue, chikungunya, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you can keep on learning and observing and asking questions and looking at videos and googling yourself if you're old enough. Always be careful with doing things online. Talk to parents, make sure somebody is guiding you and making sure you're not running into crazy things that you shouldn't be seeing, and so on and so forth. So learning should be fun, and such infographics are very dense. They lot of information, but you can make it into little pieces. It's like eating food. You don't eat the whole plate at once. You take little bites, chew them, and ingest them and digest them. The same thing, information, you cannot take it all in at once with this very dense infographic, but you can take pieces. The main thing, always see around, look around. Don't look in the screen and the phone all the time. Go out, play, look at insects, birds, and vegetation and seasons. And mangoes are outside my window because this is May. Some of them are ripe, some of them not yet ripe. You're probably enjoying mangoes in India or in the US if your parents are buying them for you, and so on. So be curious about everything. Ask questions. Why is this way? That way you can begin to see the change. Maybe your school will allow you to put a thermometer in your classroom or in your school, so that you can see how temperature is changing from day to day throughout the year, how seasons change, and if you watch it for a few years, is it getting warmer in your school, and so on and so forth. So there is so much to learn, not just from podcasts and YouTube and Google, but just looking around and looking outside. That's what you want to do. You may become, climate scientist or an engineer, a doctor, a journalist, or politician or whatever, but if you're tracking everything, if you're observing and learning, you may become much more environmentally friendly and do less damage, waste less water, less energy, don't waste food, don't travel in a car unless it's absolutely necessary, and so on and so forth. I don't mean to give advice, but just by observing everything and knowing how we affect the environment and the earth system, you may begin to make your own decisions on what role you are playing in the earth system. Is it a good role? Is it a bad role? Do you have a choice? Can you really reduce your influence, impact on the earth system? If not, why not? And so on. Okay, just ask yourself questions and keep learning. Okay, with that we close this chapter on atmospheric circulation. We come back and look at ocean circulation briefly, not in so much detail, but you can already imagine, if you have been to the ocean, there are currents, there are boats going, there are water sinking and rising, and there are fish that are swimming around, there are plants that are doing photosynthesis, and so on and so forth. So we'll come back and look at the ocean a little bit. Okay, see you in the next podcast again.